The Canyon Ultimate is coming up on its 20th birthday quite soon, and as it moves out of its teens, the bike has become 10 watts faster, 15% stiffer, and strangely for a bike that has always been the lightweight option, it has become a fraction heavier too. Before we dive in, our stats say that over 80% of you aren't actually subscribed yet, and that just isn't on. So do us a favour and click subscribe. It really does help us out. Oh, and before we get to the good stuff, there are a few things I don't like about this bike, so we'll leave them to the end. Anyway, the Canyon Ultimate is a very good racer's bike, and this CF SLX 8, CF SL8, CF SL8, CF SLX 8 DI2 model at £6,499 provides relatively good value for money when compared to some of its rivals. I should also mention that personally I prefer a bike like this over a full aero machine. Why? Because I think that for the majority of riders and for the majority of riding conditions, if you're not actually racing day in, day out, something like this is just going to be a nicer bike to ride. One of the first impressions that I got with this bike is that there is plenty of comfort here. You have space for 32mm tyres now, and that is very, very welcome. It doesn't create a bike that is mushy. It, you know, still feeds back stuff from the road, so you do know what's going on underneath the tyres, but you don't get beaten up. Have to say though, I wouldn't say that this is quite as smooth as the Merida Sculptura 5, and I would also say that this isn't quite as fast as the Tarmac SL7, but there we are splitting hairs, and it really does depend on how you set up on your bike, because remember, 70% of aero is you, the rider. What I did find with this bike is that it is an absolute blast to ride on rolling and hilly routes. So for me, that is what I tend to do. So this bike is really well suited to a rider like me. I love to go and find a hill, smash up it, smash down it, and then go and wind through the lanes as well. Descending on this thing feels really, really planted. There's no nervousness with this bike, so you can really get into a corner, pick the apex, aim for it, hit it, and get out the other side, feeling like you're a World Tour pro in the corners. Obviously, I'm not actually going that fast, but it is nice to dream once in a while. The tracking is really good through those corners, and I think it is partly to do with the compliance in the frame. There isn't really any jitteriness over rough surfaces, so if you do go and hit a patch of rough ground midway through a corner, it's not going to scare the living daylights out of you, and that is quite a nice thing. This bike that I have comes in at 7.27 kilos. Basically, to get it down to 6.8, you'd need the higher spec Dura Ace group set, fancier DT Swiss wheels, and the lighter saddle that come on the pricier bike. But I wouldn't bother paying for all of that. This is going to be just as fun, about as fast, and you're going to have a few grand left in the bank to go and ride it in a nice location or do with what you want. If I had 2 grand in the bank, well, not sure what I'd do, to be honest. In fact, in terms of this build, there is very little for me to actually get picky about. It comes with a 4i power meter. This new Ultegra is brilliant. The DT Swiss wheels fly, that saddle is actually quite comfortable, and the bike on a whole looks really good to me. One of the major changes with this bike comes at the front end, and it's no surprise to see that Canyon is following the industry trend in hiding away all of those cables. So the new front end now features the CP18 cockpit that we first saw introduced on the latest aero. That gives you a ton of adjustability, both in terms of bar height, but also width. My initial impression of this system was that it was a bit pointless, to be honest. It was engineering for engineering's sake, a cost-cutting exercise for Canyon, and a gimmick for them to talk about on the product pages. But I am fully prepared to admit where I am wrong. The point of the new cockpit is that it offers adjustability. It's also easier for Canyon to pack. That saves them a bit of money in postage costs. But realistically, the benefit for you as an end user is that you take it out of the box, and then you've got the ability to do what I've done and basically slam the bars right in and make them as narrow as possible, Or you can start with your normal position and then go narrower if you want to try that out. You can also set the bar height without having to chop anything off. And realistically, when you do get a new bike, even if you've had a bike fit, you might want to play around with some stuff. But what is it like to ride out on the road? Once you've set it, you might forget it. The cockpit for me was very, very comfortable. It has been stiff enough for my biggest efforts. Obviously, these arms are very, very strong, and it was easy to set up too. At the back, Canyon has moved to a D-shaped seat post. They've done this for aero reasons, saving maybe a couple of watts. What I care about is how comfortable it is out on the road, and to me, there seems to be plenty of rear end compliance. In terms of price, this is £6,499, which isn't bad. You're saving about 750 quid over the Specialized SL7 for the similar equipment. But the days of Canyon being the brand that offers incredible value for money are over. And this is just the start of the things that I don't actually like so much. So should we go over there to the cafe and grab a coffee? Well, we've made our way over to the cafe and I've got some suitable snacks, and now we need to continue talking about price, because Giant's TCR Advance Pro is £4,999. Before you shout at me in the comments saying about cable integration, it will save you maybe a watt. Maybe. Okay, hiding those cables might look better in your eyes, but is it worth £1.5 grand? If you do want the cables hidden, then the Merida Sculptura 9000 is £5,900, and that is a brilliant bike, though I will admit that you'll probably want to save the 600 quid that you save, well, on getting it resprayed, because Merida, you've sprayed it brown. Why? Then there's also the new Propel, which is going to be available soon, and the Ultegra DI2 model will likely still beat this for price and weigh about the same. So if you're looking for value, you can do better now than the Ultimate. And while we're picking at things, I will have to get picky with the bottle cages. And while we're on the subject of negative things, I am going to have to get picky about one thing in particular. The bottle cages on this, nice to have them included as standard, but the carbon cages, while they work with the Canyon bottles provided, they don't actually work with any of my other bottles, which is going to be annoying for a lot of people. And then we come to the saddle, which if you don't actually like and you're looking to replace it with a carbon railed saddle that has 7x9mm rails, you've got a bit of an issue, because this bike doesn't ship with the necessary saddle clamp mounts that you need to fit your preferred saddle. Canyon does say that it is actually looking at that, so this might not be an issue for long, but it's not something that you expect with such an expensive bike. And then the final thing I just want to pick up on is that the Garmin mount up there, well, it puts your Garmin at this angle to your bars when your bars are nice and level, and that just really annoys me. There doesn't seem to be anything in the box that allows you to change this, and that just looks bad to me. I'm not going to end on a bad note. This is, after all, a bloody nice bike to ride. It's fast uphill, it sails down them with balanced handling, and if you find yourself mixed up in a fast-paced group ride or a race, you're not going to be left wanting. It also looks absolutely brilliant to me, and I actually really like this front end from an end user's point of view. Well, with all of that said, you can read my full written review over on the site right now. Let me know what you think about this bike down in the comments below. Is it something that you are gonna spend your money on? Remember to be one of the cool kids and actually subscribe, like this video before you go, and we will see you in the next one.